Good afternoon, members. We have already formed a quorum. It is also time to start. A number of members would like to speak on the motion to reduce the ringing time from 5 minutes to 1 minute. Ms. Claudia Mo. Are we having a meeting? Have we started? It seems that we found ourselves in a market or a restaurant. Can we start? Please give me back 13 seconds. Yes, reset the clock, please. Thank you, Chair. I'm against the proposal to cut short the ringing time of the bell from 5 minutes to 1 minute. I have to protest. Of course, being the Chair, you have absolutely the power to propose such, but I'm not happy. We don't have time. We still don't have time. This morning, Ted Hui praised you for being responsive, saying that we have seen a progress. I won't say that there has been any regression, but still, I found that you have always been like that, but at least you have been better than Mr. Ng Sing. But then this morning you said that it would be the last round for us to speak, and then for the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 minute rounds. At the time, I have only got 1 minute left. So it isn't so much about protest. And then I sort of made inquiries with you. Mr. Ray Chen made a similar remark, and then you said that at the end of the day, everybody would be entitled to 3 minutes. But then all the time you have been giving us 3 minutes, and today you started with 1 minute only. It is worrying. Now you say that for all those members who are in their last round of questions, then we'll be getting the last 1 minute slot. I'm really unhappy because you are sort of vacillating, and I have to protest. Someone from the pro-establishment camp has surprised us. He was saying that we should be classified according to our educational attainment. He was saying that anybody in the first year of his undergraduate study is not up to standard. I don't know what the undergrads will think. Moreover, we never judge anybody's knowledge or personality on the basis of educational attainment, because we know that those who are brave are usually those who work in the market. So I don't think we should deal with this point again. Otherwise, there will be unfortunate associations. It is a scandal for you to make a false claim about your educational qualification. And then this morning, someone here an accusation against you. I cannot remember who said it. It was said that you were sort of overbearing, and you forced our president, Mr. Andrew Leung, to give way to you. I think this is quite a serious allegation. I want to know whether the initiation came from you, so that our logical meeting started to see signs of getting confused. Now, Mr. Leung told us that we would resume the normal practice, and we'll be having our LC meeting until 8 p.m. on Thursday next week. Now, if you are concerned about the ruling of Mr. Andrew Leung, I would like to say a few words. Even on my part, I only became aware of it, and I started to talk to him when I received notice from him. Order, please, order, please. And then Mr. Andrew Leung has his own judgment. And even if I made inquiries, it's up to him to make a ruling. I didn't inquire with him, but I do agree very much with his decision, because we are really running out of time. I don't think we should harp on such meaningless questions. Even if I had raised it, he would not have been influenced by me. He has his own independent thinking, so let's not waste time on this meaningless question. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, don't speak from your chair. Don't utter nonsense from your chair. Dr. K.K. Kwok, are you here? Yes. Mr. Chairman, as to whether Andrew Leung has his own will, I'm not sure. I think probably you will get a seat on the EXCO next time because you are most obedient to the administration. You will give whatever the administration asks for. Now, this has been dragging on for 11 years, since 2006. But then there are lots of uncertainties, and we have got this BOD, and $31.9 billion will be taken out from the public coffers to carry out an experiment. Well, for the main arena, when it is a non-event day, people can't go there to go jogging. Now, I think if you say that this is a sports item, I think it is just a pretext. $31.9 billion and then profits. So you are handing out such a substantial sum to the conglomerate. And then if there is a bid rigging, then they will also get a share of $60 million as well. Now, for the workers in Hong Kong, I'm sure they're frustrated when they see the figures. When we look at the consultants, well, I think they are getting $6,000 or $7,000 a day, and then others getting $17,000 a day. They are making up the figures, and the money of our citizens are going down the drain. I have tried not to talk about corruption. Mrs. Fong is here. I think you were at one stage involved in something scandalous. If you ask us to trust the government, we need to have trust in the system. Now, for the efficiency unit, it has been said that for such PPP projects as to how money should be made. In fact, there is a clear guideline, and yet the government is ignoring that altogether. You're imposing it on us, and you have chosen to drag on for more than 10 years. You have got Mr. Chen Kin-po here to protect you, and we have to give way to this item. It is unjust. This is against justice. It is against public interest for a government to do this. $31.9 billion should not have been spent, should not be spent like this. And then for young people, they want to play badminton, they want to swim, and there isn't any venue. There isn't a venue for them. Now, this is going to be a white elephant project. And there will be a car park, there will be singing, there will be concerts, there will be dining and retail establishments. So it is a collusion between the government and the businessmen. I won't agree to cutting short the bell ringing time. Mr. Leung Yiu-chung, I think just now you were here and we endorsed the proposal from N. Zhang to ask a urgent question. We were not having any we didn't make decisions according to sort of our personal sort of favoritism. Now, it is a matter of whether we should handle motions under Rule 37A, whether the ringing time should be, the bell time should be cut short. I can never bring myself to believe that members have a clear idea. In particular, there are members who have rushed from upstairs to come here to vote. If we have only got 1 minute, how can we expect them to understand clearly what the motion is about? Last time, I've already said that it is acceptable to cut short the bell time from 5 minutes to 1 minute. This at the LC meeting. This is because we only apply it to the CSAs, and we have received a copy of the CSAs well in advance. And then usually when we speak, we have already referred to the content of the CSAs. So we are aware of them, and there's no need to be given time to digest the content. So it is acceptable and it can be adopted when we hold an LC meeting. Now, in this case, it is very different because they can't even read the words, and if you don't call them rubber stamp, what else can they be called? So they don't even want to think, and then whatever is proposed by the pandemic, they will say no. So they haven't listened to the voice of their conscience. When we listen to the voice of our conscience, we try to tell the right from the wrong, but they don't think. So it is not proper. This is not how human beings should behave. Now we are in the legislature. We have our duty. We need to pass a judgment on the right or wrong of a matter. But it seems that they don't care. So they have been controlled. They have been controlled by somebody else. But is it what we expect of a lawmaker? Of course not. Now, 5 minutes is already a short period of time, but then we're used to that sort of duration. At least we give everybody the chance to take a look and digest the content. If you are giving up such an opportunity, then you just have a couldn't care less attitude. You are not doing justice to the public at large, so I'm against it. Mr. Andrew Wen. Thank you, Chair. This morning I met you. I ran into you in the toilet, and then we stood side by side. I talked to you briefly, and then we exchanged some views from the bottom of our heart. If that's from the bottom of our heart, it's better not to disclose it. Otherwise, next time I meet you in the toilet, I dare not speak to you. Mr. Chairman, well, on different occasions I have praised you. Occasionally, you have been just and fair. It is a fair comment. And I've never blamed you because you get an order and you have to execute it. Other than standing side by side with you, I hope you will be on our side in the battle. Sometimes when the officials do not answer the questions properly, you also challenge them. Now, everybody is saying that livelihood projects are important. For this project, there are many areas that we are not clear about. Let me not say that you are wrong, SHA. We have asked many questions about the difference between DBO and DBG. We want to know whether our objectives can be met. We are also worried about unforeseen consequences, whether it will be counterproductive. We want to know whether they will abandon the core business because they're going to share a lot of the money with the government. It seems that you haven't thought about the possible negative consequences. We are indeed worried. So we want to know whether it is a white elephant on the pretext of a sport park, while it is having retail and dining as its core business. I think our questions are legitimate, and we've also talked about the exceedingly long duration of the project. Now, the Secretary has been given another 5 years. But then for this one, it has a long duration, altogether 35 years. SHA, I'm not trying to curse you, but then even if you run to 100 years old, I don't think you will be in the office for 100 years. Now you talk about having a monitoring system. Of course, we know it, but have we convinced us? Mr. Chairman, we have got many legitimate questions. And what about the motions under 37A? We'd like to seek amendments. So I just wonder if anybody has taken a good look. And please don't blame them. Some of them are new to us, and some members have not even studied the motions, the wording, I mean. So I don't think we need to be that rushed. I think we need to spend time on it. Thank you. If I may try to disclose what was said between myself and Mr. Wen in the toilet, I said that when the officers answer properly, then it's easier. Otherwise, I have to cut short and then I will be accused. So I just had a few brief remarks with Mr. Wen. Let me explain the point to Mr. Leung Yu Chung. Now, it is a matter of putting the question to the vote. That is whether we should handle the motion under 37A. Now, I was saying that we are at a stage when we had to put the matter to the vote. We should not have we should not spend time on other things. So, Mr. Leung, I don't think if you give them another 10 minutes, they will say yes. I think the crux of the matter is whether we should handle the motion. I think everybody knows about the voting inclination. Now we have got 26. If we've got 5 minutes, then we'll just be looking at each other during those 5 minutes. So I don't think that is useful. Mr. Eddie Chu. Mr. Chen, are you saying that we should just dispense with 37A? No, it won't be. No, I think your point of view or what you have said seems to imply that we should not have allowed for 37A. Well, what about 37A motions? It says that if we agree, then we put it to the vote, and then if the question is carried, it will be legally binding. No, it is not binding. It's a matter of expression of views. Well, no, it's a matter of expression of views. They don't have to listen to us. We're giving pressure, and they have the duty to follow up on what we have proposed in the motion. If you start talking about the absence of legally binding effect, then the motion debates held every Wednesday would be meaningless. Mr. Chu, if there isn't any pressure, then we won't be easily dismissed every time. Now, when we have motions under 37A passed, and the discussion of the two subcommittees would also exert pressure on the government. I agree with Edward Yu, that is, we need time to understand the content of the wording of the motions, so I'm against cutting short the bell time. Just now, some members have exchanged some views, and I have to give a reply. Ms. Alex Mack referred to the Universal Accessibility Program. She said that the Kwai Ching District Council members criticized that even for projects requiring small sum of money had not been able to get its turn here to get approved. I think the Pandams have talked to Mr. Matthew Zhang, the CS4A. We have said that for projects involving small sums and not controversial, we welcome their jumping of the queue. But so far, we haven't heard from him. So maybe we should cooperate with Alice Mack to fight for this to be done. And then earlier on, Ted Hui had an exchange of words with you. I am grateful to Ted Hui for being so persistent, because as a result of what he did, I was urged to go back to the judgment between the President and Leung Kwok Hong. I know that the court doesn't want to intervene in the internal matters of the LegCo. It is clear from paragraph 28 of the court's judgment. And then in paragraph 64, well, it is said that it is clear that the President has the power to set limits and to stop the debate, but then the court should not play a role in judging whether the power has been exercised properly. So the matter comes back to this LegCo. And for us, I think we need to have a serious discussion. That is whether there should be a mechanism within the Council to talk about ways to suspend the discussion of a particular matter. The former president of the LegCo, Mr. Justice Zhang, in the beginning of year 2014, did suggest a mechanism to stop filibustering. Well, I think you should talk to the president. I don't think it should be up to you to make an arbitrary decision to suspend the discussion. I think we should have a debate and then we come up with a mechanism. Now, you are saying that you made a decision, we didn't rush out to barge on you, and then you regard it as a consensus. I think we need to think think of a mechanism for the future. Dr. Lau Xiulai, I'm objecting to the cutting short of the bell time from 5 minutes to 1 as a form of protest. You have been fair most of the time, but today you're trying to suspend the discussion at too early stage. We're supposed to have our meeting until 7 something. I think there's still time for us to express our views. and we have not been repeating ourselves. Don't always say that we're still on the same theme and so we're repetitive. Earlier on, we talked about different models of procurement, and then Dr. Yu referred us to a government paper, and it's too misleading, and then the cases referred to are not well founded.
And we had a debate on financing, and I spoke on air quality. I did not repeat myself. Well, from the Home Affairs panel, at first I thought whether it would be too long to have 25 years, and then I talked about risk shifting during construction, and I moved on to air pollution. I haven't touched on the committee that would operate for 25 years. I just want to have more time to elaborate on my other points. Well, the owner of Kitchi cast doubt on it. Would it be better to let a private operator run it? And previously, he went to the venue and have a look and said that it was poorly run, like so poor that it was like the Hong Kong Stadium. And now that the government has taken it up, and actually the turf is maintained better than when it was in the hands of a private operator. So don't think that private ones would be better. Well, in Singapore, even the national team did not have enough money to get training on that grounds, and they only go there for a game. That was the case in Singapore. And the paper says that the major difference is the rental of a premises. And if it's run in the private hands, then the return for, say, beverage catering will be higher. But that also means that SMEs will not be able to get a share in the market. Why don't we allow SMEs, local ones, to benefit? Because we hear from them that they have a very tough operating environment. There are just so many different points to discuss and so many viewpoints to cover. So if you cut us short prematurely, it will not be good. I just say that you have reduced our speaking time too prematurely, and I'll oppose to it. Well, we also have the FSD's $1.7 billion to improve their communication system. And if we go on, that means it will take them longer to improve their communication facility. We also have the project of the South Island line, which is overrunning. Well, I think it's a waste of time. Mr. Ben Chan. Well, motion to adjourn and changing the time from 5 minutes to 1 minute. They've been criticizing for one purpose only, to filibuster. They have completely forgotten about livelihood issues and elderly rights and healthcare issues. Some hospital redevelopment projects may not take place. Well, it's not the case that if you say that it's important, then it is. When Mr. Leung Yiu-chung talked about whether it's what is right and what is wrong, think about some elderly people in villages. They are now in number 9 in the queue in the PWSC. They've been waiting for several months, and we still haven't dealt with that. So when you filibuster, please think about how people are suffering. Well, this year the project will not happen. I don't know how many years they will have to wait. I don't know whether the elderly people would be able to wait for the lift and the escalator to happen. Well, anyone else? I will now put it to a vote. Under Rule 47, the bell will be shortened from 5 to 1. Now, please ring the bell for the vote.
陳志全議員
Mr. Ray Chan, please get ready because as soon as we have finished with this, we will deal with 5 of your motions, or 6. 6. And then Ms. La Xiu Lai, and then Mr. Eddie Chu, Leung Yu Chung, and then Leung Kok Hong.
如果唔係咧，大家見到面就揞住把口嗰啲。因為頭先你講咗一句咩有柯打嚟，人哋以為我喺廁所講有柯打嚟，我冇柯打嚟嘅。 提一提大家咧，我哋即將
Let me remind you that we will be voting on whether to agree to change the time of the bell from 5 to 1 minute.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins. Voting closes. Result displayed. 30 for, 19 against, no abstention. So the question is agreed. Mr. Ray Chan, please ring the bell for 1 minute. Read it out, please. In accordance with Rule 37A of the procedure of the FS, well, given the fact that the administration's decided to deal with the Kai-Tak project for design, construction and operation with a project cost of over $30 billion, well, the committee is of the view that the administration should break the project into three, namely the main stadium, the public sports ground, and also the indoor center as separate projects.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins. We are now voting on 37A. Voting closes. Result displayed. 18 for 29 against. I declare that this motion is negatived. Next, please. In accordance with Rule 37A of the FC procedure, I move that given the administration has indicated that in relation to it proposes a subsidy of $60 million for those who fail to get the bid under the project, and this has caused public dissatisfaction. We ask for the administration to withdraw this subsidy of $60 million to those who did not get the bid.
Voting
begins. Voting closes. Result displayed. 16 for 29 against, no abstention. I declare this motion negatived. Next, please. 1 minute. Well, under Rule 73A of the FC procedure, I move that under paragraph 18 to 20 of the paper in relation to procurement approach, when the administration chooses a construction, there should be requirement for details as criteria of each bidder, and also disclose the information and consult the public so that the public, together with the administration, will choose the best approach based on the bidder's proposed criteria. Voting begins. Voting closes. Result displayed. 18 for 29 against. No abstention. The motion is negatived. Next, please. 1 minute. Under Rule 73A of the FC procedure, I move that, under paragraph 18 of the paper, the administration decides that a fixed minimum sum has to be paid by the contractor selected, and there will be a percentage of profit sharing. However, such information is not given to us, and a lot of people think that the percentage is too low, then that the design, construction and operation approach should not be used. We ask the administration to make it clear in the tender document that starting from the first year, every year, the contractor will pay the administration no less than $300 million, a fixed sum, and also no less than 70% of the total revenue of the Kai-Tak projects, so that the $31.8 billion project cost will be recovered as soon as possible. Voting begins. Voting closes. Result displayed. 18 for, 29 against. I declare the motion negatived. 1 minute, please. Under Rule 37A of the FC procedure, I move that, given the administration said, saying that in paragraph 3 of the paper that between 2022 and 23 the Kai-Tak Sports Park will be commissioned, and it so happened that they will apply. At that time, the Hong Kong will apply to organize the homosexual Olympics in 2022. We asked the administration that more measures should be done to make sure that this is of international standard in order to attract more business.
Voting
begins. Voting closes. Result displayed. 18 for, 31 against, no abstention. The motion is negatived. Next, please. 1 minute. Under Rule 37A of the FC procedure, I asked that, when the administration chooses the procurement method under paragraph 18 of the paper, they have to ensure that in the various measures of the project there will be unisex toilets and changing rooms, so that all athletes will be able to choose the one that that are suitable to them. Voting begins. Voting closes. Result displayed. 17 for, 31 against, no abstention. The motion is negatived. Ms. Lau Siu Lai, 1 minute. Well, the $180 million has been reduced to $120 million as financial intensive. Under 37A of the FC procedure, we ask that under Head 703, Subhead 272RS, Kai-Tak Sports Park, FCR, the contingency fee should be reduced before we consider it. Voting begins. Voting closes. Result displayed. 18 for, 31 against, no abstention. The motion is negatived. Ms. Lau Siu Lai. Next, 1 minute. Under Rule 37A of the FC procedure, we asked the administration to undertake that there will be a statutory body set up as advisory body of the Kai-Tak Sports Park to review the effectiveness and also the performance of the successful tenderer before they deal with Subhead 272RS under Head 703. Well, I will stop receiving 37A motions.
We still have 17 37As. I will put it to the vote now. We'll stop and display results. 18 for, 31 against, 0 abstentions. We have negatived this item. Ms. Lao Xilai, according to ROP 37A, this committee requests the government to pledge that in the tender document, the contractor will put 4% of the design and build cost to transfer the risk, and for item 703. And we also want to have the application for 272RS done so accordingly. We'll start the vote. We'll display results. 19 for, 30 against, 0 abstentions. I announce that the item is negatived. Next, Mr. Eddie Chu, 1 minute. According to ROP 37A, I move that the government, after conducting the tender exercise, they disclose the operational agreement. We'll now vote. We'll display results. 17 for, 31 against, 1 abstention. I announce that the item is negatived. Next item. According to ROP 37A, I move that this committee urge that after the conclusion of the tender document, that all bid incentive arrangement documents be disclosed.
We'll
now start the vote. We'll stop voting and display results. 17 for, 32 against, 0 abstentions. I announce that this item is negative. Next item. According to FCROP 37A, I move that after the tender the exercise is completed, the contractor disclose the breakdown of the expenses and provide it for public scrutiny. Next is Mr. Lo Kun-zhong. Please prepare your motion.
現在開始表。
We'll now vote. We'll stop voting, then display results. 17 for, 32 against, 1 abstention. I announce that the motion is negatived. Mr. Lo Guinchong. According to Finance Committee Rule of Procedure 37A, I move that since a significant number of legislators are worried that the contractor will not operate the sports park that we with full sincerity, so therefore we urge the government to improve to increase the incentives. We'll now vote. We'll stop voting and display results. 17 for, 32 against, 1 abstention. I announce that the item is negatived. Mr. Lo Guinchong. According to FCROP 37A, I move the motion that since the committee is aware of bid incentives involve 120 million Hong Kong dollars, and this will be funded through the contingency fees, and it is beyond the scrutiny of the Legislative Council. So therefore we urge the government to have a breakdown or a separate item for the bid incentives such that we can have a better understanding of the funding arrangements. We'll now put it to the vote. We'll display results. 18 for, 32 against, 0 abstentions. We have negatived this item. Next item. According to FCRP Rule 37A, I put forward the motion that since the government has not disclosed Kai Tak Sports Park the consultation group membership list, we urge that the government invite people with different stances, including professionals and the legislative councils, in order to have us scrutinize the development and operation of the sports park. We'll now put it to the vote. We'll display results. 17 for, 31 against, 0 abstentions. I announce we negative this item. Next. According to FCROP Rule 37A, I propose the motion that since the government has not been able to clearly explain the joint venture model, these contractors' investment will not exceed the cost of building by more than 5%. Because of this, we urge the government to reevaluate the joint venture feasibility and reduce the government's construction costs and risks. And next is Mr. Leung Ko-hong. We'll now put it to the vote. We'll display results. 18 for, 28 against, and 0 abstentions. I announce this item is negative. Mr. Leung Ko-hong, 1 minute. Thank you, Chairman. I put forward the motion that this committee disallow the sports park design, build, operate contract be awarded to real estate developers who have real estate projects or commercial projects in the Kai Tak Sports area in order to ensure that the contractors will not receive a benefit or enhance their project item values in the Kai Tak Sports Park.
We'll now
put it to the vote. We'll display results. For 19 for, 29 against, 0 abstentions. The item is negatived. Next. We have some technical problems with the voting machine. Mr. Leung Ko-hong. Thank you, Chairman. I put forward the motion that this committee urge the government to only award the design, build, operate contract of Kai Tak Sports Park to contractors who have not gone over budget and have also have not been awarded and have been awarded projects of 2 projects of 20 billion of the nature of design, build, and operate, and to ensure that private companies with sufficient ability and experience can be awarded the Kai Tak Sports Park project to ensure that public funds are being well spent. We'll put it to the vote. Can you vote? My machine is not working. Fate is at operation. We'll display results. 16 for, 31 against, and 0 abstentions. I announce that the item is negatived. Mr. Leung Ko-hong. I put forward the motion that the government contract for the Kai Tak Sports Park is design, build, and operate contract, but a lot of members of the public would like to participate in designing the sports park. So this committee urges the government to before they award the design, build, operate contract, they should first organize a design competition for the sports park and allow all international architects to submit a plan and select the best plan amongst the from the field and award the design, build, operate contract to the winning design. We'll put it to the vote. We'll stop voting and display results. 16 for, 31 against, 0 abstentions. I announce the committee negative this item. Next item. Thank you, Chairman. I put forward the motion that the government wishes to utilize a design, build, operate contract to deal with the Kai Tak Sports Park. And a lot of the members of the public are worried that when the sports park is being operated by a private company, it will lead to high fees for all the facilities, and we urge the government to stop the so-called design, build, operate contract for this project, and we should only award a building contract, and the government should be responsible for design and operating the Kai Tak Sports Park to ensure that the sports park fees can be at an affordable level. We'll now put it to the vote. We'll display the results. 16 for, 30 against, and 0 abstentions. I announce this item is negative. Next item. Thank you, Chairman. I put forward the motion that the government supplement document FC 181/1617(01). It states that the contractor will only be responsible for the daily maintenance and repair expenditure of Kai Tak Sports Park. So the public is worried that the contractor will not bear the cost for delays or repairs arising from faulty material. So this committee urges the government to stipulate that the winning contractor will bear the costs for building errors or any other material faults, and they will be responsible for the expenditure. This is to ensure that the public funds are being well spent.
We'll now
put it to the vote. We'll display the results. 16 for, 29 against, and 0 abstentions. I announce that we negative this item. Dr. Kokake, last 4 items. According to FCROP Rule 37A, I put forward the motion that the government needs to pledge that the Kai Tak Sport Park main stadium will be supporting local events, and we also need to ensure that the local sports groups have priority in using the venues. We'll now vote. We will display results. 17 for, 29 against, and 0 abstentions. I announce that the item is negatived. Dr. Kokake, according to FCROP Rule 37A, I put forward the motion that the Kai Tak Sports Park has a very controversial item of bid incentive. So this committee urges the government to suspend the relevant sections that deal with the bid incentive.
We'll
now put it to the vote.
Vote
Voting is closed. The result is to be displayed. 18 for, 30 against, no abstention. I declare that the motion has been passed. The next one, please. According to 37A of the FC procedures, I move that this committee urges the administration, as far as the Kai Tak Sports Park project is concerned, in relation to the BDO, there must be a cap to the profits to be collected by the major contractor, so that there won't be excessive fee, so that the public can use the sports facilities. Voting begins. Voting is closed. The result is 19 for, not 22 against. I declare the motion negatived. The last one, Dr. K.K. Kwok. According to Rule 37A of the FC procedures, I move that this committee requests the administration to set up a clear penalties mechanism and a performance monitoring mechanism in relation to the Kai Tak Sports Park to make sure that the performance will be up to standard, and then the main contractor will make sure that the priority will be given to the local sports sector. Voting begins. Voting is closed. The result is 21 for, 31 against. I declare that the committee has vetoed the handling of this motion. Mr. Eddie Chu, in accordance with Rule 21 of the FC procedure, would like to move a motion as stated in paper FC 187. I have agreed to Mr. Chu's wording in the motion. First of all, I will give him the floor for 3 minutes to move the motion. The government will be invited to speak. Other members may speak once each for 3 minutes. I'll give the floor to administration to reply, and then 3 minutes to Mr. Chu for a reply. And then we'll put the matter to the vote. The bell will ring for 1 minute. Mr. Chu, please move your motion and speak. Mr. Chairman, I move the motion standing under my name. Well, in fact, a Capital Works Reserve Fund has empowered the LegCo to attach conditions to proposals that we approve, so that the project will be more in line with our requirements. For decades, this hasn't been invoked. It is now year 2017. It is for the first time that we are having a debate on using this power. I hope members will make good use of this mechanism. By attaching conditions, we'll have a meaning on the relationship between the executive and the LegCo. It will change the picture. That is, we have always been presented with two options: either we approve or we don't approve. So the administration has got used to it, saying that the administration would not budge at all. As a result of this perception, the FC's deliberations have been getting more and more difficult. Today, we would like to attach conditions so that, irrespective of our political stance, we will be in the proactive mode. And in future, we'll have an additional option. That is, we can give a conditional approval. The citizens can also influence the FC's decisions via us. I would like to have 7 conditions. Basically, I hope that instead of entirely privately run, I think more elements should be publicly run so as to defend the interests of the public. But then 6 of them have been ruled out of order by the chairman. I've only got the 7th one left behind, and it says so. That is, the FS may only spend the money after the 1st of July 2018, at least 3 months later than the proposal of the administration. The government should consider changing DBO to DBG so that more parts will be taken up by the administration. I hope members will support my motion, which will be legally binding. As to the scope of the conditions to be attached, I think it takes our joint efforts to explore the topic. I think at today's meeting, it is a matter of a paradigm shift, and I don't think you should lightly dismiss this matter as a delay or filibustering. Thank you. PS or the SHA? SHA. Well, for this motion, number 7, rigidly imposing a timeline on the spending of the money, saying that we can only spend the money after 1st of July 2018. I'm against it. This will prevent us from going ahead, and we cannot sort of give directions concerning the project, like environmental monitoring and auditing work, as well as the independent environmental checker, and also the need to construct the website and the related offices. We won't have money to pay the necessary technical consultants, as well as the materials consultant, which will be needed for the ensuing work. All right, thank you. Ms. Chair, you want to say something? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to raise a few points. Of course, the administration will respect the ruling of the FC chairman, but then the nature of motion 7 is such that the administration will be restricted in terms of the timing of the spending of money as well as the commencement of works, so we're against it. Let me clarify a few points. First of all, when we apply for money under the Capital Works Reserve Fund, what we are doing is that we hope you will give approval to our funding requests, and we hope that you will give approval to the approved project estimate so that it will be upgraded to Category A. After giving approval, the duty will then shift to the government. It is the government to implement the project. That's the first point. Second point is that we need flexibility when we execute a project. Now, we have got the approved project estimate in the paper, and that cannot be sort of changed. But then for the schedule, etc., that's for reference only. In actual circumstances, generally speaking, we cannot always adhere rigidly to the timetable. Well, since the establishment of the Public Works Reserve Fund, as long as we do not exceed the approved project estimate, and as long as we don't go beyond the scope endorsed by the FC, the administration can look at the actual circumstances, and the government doesn't have to be bound by the details in the paper approved. For motion 7, it is going to restrict the administration, saying that the administration can only draw money from the approved funding after a particular date. But then we are asking for approval to start using the money approved within the financial year 2017 to 2018. We do not spell out the specific date on which we can start using the money. Therefore, motion 7 is not in line with our proposal. Therefore, the administration doesn't think that it is in line with the scope covered by Resolution C of Cap 2A. If members start to restrict our proposals by way of this motion, like when we can start using the money, it is a matter of obstructing our work. It will also jeopardize the integrity of the project. It will jeopardize the original objective of the project. It may also add to the expenditure, and we believe that such a condition or such an exception cannot be in line with paragraph C of Cap 2A. So it is outside the scope of paragraph C of Cap 2A. The nature of motion 7, as I have said, tries to impose restrictions on when the government can implement the project. In principle, we object to it. On the one hand, the FC is to approve the funding, and on the other hand, the FC will restrict when the government can spend the money. I'm afraid this will seriously obstruct our implementation. It is going beyond your duty of giving funding approval. You are also usurping the power of the government to launch a project. We believe that any attempt in any motion to restrict the timing of commencement of a project should have been ruled as out of order. Mr. Chairman, if necessary, we can restate the position of the government. Ms. Claudia Mo, 3 minutes. Yes, Leng Yu-chung. You haven't switched on your microphone. Yes, please switch on his mic. Can we be given a copy of the reply of the government speech? Ms. Chair, yes, we can. Please, can you do so now, because we want to respond to what you have said. I haven't got time to jot down the points. I need time. Can time be given? Please do it ASAP. We are not going to suspend the meeting. So is she going to give us a copy? I think she has already stated her arguments. Yes, please take a look. I have tried my best to jot down the points. Well, in the extreme case, I will give her the chance to say that again. I won't suspend the meeting. Well, for what she has said, I'm sure it will have a bearing on what I'm going to say. I have to respond to her reply. Secretary, I think we can give members a copy immediately. You can be the last one to speak. Claudia Mo. I've been surprised by the administration's reply. It has been strongly worded, and it is said that motion 7, moved by Mr. Ejichu, is obstructing the project, and it is usurping the power of the government to start the project. So the government would like to have its own way. Now it seems that the government is implying that we don't know that there are contradictions. I think it is a matter of insulting the wisdom of the FC chairman. It is outrageous. I heard her attitude's speech, and he has moved me because he was saying that we should get back our way of doing things. We should be acting independently, and we should show others that we are independent and not just here like a rubber stamp. Now, you have only given approval to one motion, and then they are saying that this is impossible. We are restricting the government. Now, for Mr. Chu, the design, build, and operate DBO, it should be slightly adjusted to DBG, G for government. That is, the government should have a larger role, and we are sort of postponing it by 3 months only. So why should you be so ferocious? if you want to get your own way, then you better not come here. What sort of a government have we got for the government to spend money like this? In the past 6 months, we have got so many infrastructural projects that we've been hard-pressed, like the Disneyland and also the pay rise for the senior officials. You always talk about tens of billions of dollars. It's not your money. You don't care. You just spend the money as quickly as you can. Now you are, in effect, saying that we are standing in your way. And for the members' motion to be agreed by the chairman to be handled, now you say that we are obstructing you and we are usurping your power. In fact, I still can't forget the money given to Disneyland. Now we're talking about overseas company, and yet we're using our public money to facilitate the business of somebody else. It is unimaginable. I agree with what Mr. Ejichi is advocating. Let me remind members that for this round of discussion, you have to talk about why you are for or against Mr. Ejichi's proposal to set a time limit on 1st of July 2018. Dr. Edward Yu. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank Ejichi for moving this motion. Well, I think he's trying to help the administration. He's trying to rescue the government from the 3 cardinal sins. First of all, the FS can spend the money, but then we're trying to put it off for 1 year's time. And then we are able to meet the 2008 efficiency unit guidelines on PPP partially, and in this way you won't be contradicting your own internal guidelines, because payments should have been made by the contractor itself to be reimbursed later. Now we want to make the payment model closer to the examples of successful DBO cases, like the first one in Mountain Arena. That is, the contractor will pay first and then the government will reimburse a bit later. What is also important is that in this way, it means that the papers to be submitted by the government will no longer be inaccurate, because DBO will become DB short-term finance operator. So he has good intentions. By having this motion, he's going to rectify 3 wrongs made by the government. And then the government is misleading the public. The government has committed a serious error. Now, as long as members approve, then this first simple motion from HQ will mean that we can start the project, and yet it would not be violating an internal guideline. It won't be violating the successful international examples of DBO, and it won't jeopardize the accuracy of the paper. Now that he's citing 8 years' time, in fact, it is much to the advantage of the government. Well, in fact, according to the successful examples of DBO, work should have been completed and it should have been accepted before payment will be made. I don't think Mr. HG would like the project to be a departure from the original plan too much, and so he's only asking for a year's time. In this way, we can partially meet 3 principles. So I urge members consider the case seriously. Dr. Lau Shilai, I support Mr. Chu's motion. For his point, as well as the point made by Edward Yu, I subscribe to them. I have read the government papers. I've also read the Mountain Arena's example, payment was only made upon completion of the works. So I think Mr. Chu's proposal is in line with the norm as well as the transfer of risk. I want to elaborate as to why he would like to ask the government to defer, because he will urge the government to think again. The Secretary would like to do it quickly. We don't want you to hurry. We don't want you to commit prematurely. So please think twice.
Can it be changed from DBO to DBG? Previously, I inclined to believe that the administration that perhaps is better run by a private operator. But I've seen examples locally and overseas. The LCSD actually is not doing as poorly as the others said, and private operators do not perform as well as the administration said. And I think we have to take into account the local situation. I've cited the Singaporean example. For the main stadium, private operators manage the facilities poorly, not just the turf and the facilities. They charge a high price. If we build a sports ground not for the use of the public, then it will be very regrettable. Perhaps the administration will consider letting the LCSD to operate it. It will be a few years before the site is actually operated. They can train LCSD staff so that they will have the capability to operate it. Maybe it doesn't have to be fully operated by the administration. If you believe in private operators so much, perhaps some part of it, say the main stadium, will be operated by them. There are certain parts that the LCSD has been doing quite well. Perhaps they can operate the parts they excel in. Please reconsider it. Well, for turning events into mega events, elite events, and you have to consider other things as well. And I think the administration should consider the welfare of the public as well. Mr. Michael Look. I oppose to Mr. Eddie Ju's motion for this reason. Perhaps Mr. Ju would like to break tradition. It's not a bad thing to be adventurous, but sometimes you have to look at the objective and also effectiveness. When I read Mr. Ju's motion, I see that it has pushed the date of drawdown of the funds by 3 months from April to July. What does it mean? It means that there is a delay of 3 months when the project is what is commenced. There may also be a risk of cost inflation by at least 1%. That means we're talking about $300 million. If it's delayed by 3 months, can you tell me what is the possible increase in project cost? Members who would like to support this motion, are you willing to shoulder the responsibility for the project inflation? So a delay of 3 months causing project cost inflation. Pan-Democrats, are you going to be responsible for it? Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, well, the members who who want this approved will be responsible. Well, you actually get in the way. Please start my time again. I don't know if without looking at the hard copy and just basing on my own notes, it says it's the administration's responsibility to execute the project. I don't know if the administration noticed that sometimes when it comes to projects, I don't believe that the operators can take everything up. Some of the services will have to be outsourced. What we usually see is that when the service is outsourced, the money is given, but wages are not paid to the actual workers. What happens is that a lump sum is given to them, and it's down to the outsourced contractors to decide how to use the money. So if we put a time limit to it, the contractor will have to pay. And you can specify this in the tender document, that they are to be held responsible, that they are responsible for making payment. Then they will take things to heart. It's not like what we have seen before when there were strikes or industrial actions. Usually it's because contractors or subcontractors fail to pay wages. However, the administration has already paid them money, only talking about a few months. So the amount committed is small. I haven't heard from the administration. Well, since you have already told them that they are responsible for making payment, there shouldn't be any risk of a project cost inflation. I don't see any reason why it will get in the way of the progress of project, why it will increase the burden, why it will hinder work progress. Everything said was rather abstract, without giving any details. And I think the most important thing is that payment and financial matters are usually problematic. So if you impose restrictions and require them to make payment, then it becomes their responsibility. So I support this amendment, this proposed amendment. It will be better if it's written in the tender document. I can only see merits. There are no shortcomings. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, 3 minutes. Well, I have been engaged in litigation involving Section 74. It says that unless it involves government policy, that is, by asking for payment to be made after the 1st of July. It's a different case if the administration is weak and the other side asks for the money. Under DBO, they will have to fund the project first. I think it's a different perspective. That's why we say that, the funding should be released later. We have the right. We give you money. You come to us for funds. We are checks and balances. Unless you tell us that government motions should not be amended for certain reasons, or members' motions or private bills should not involve certain things. You only have to refer to 34. If you don't reason with me, you just want to go ahead with the vote, that's fine. But you can't say in principle that we're wrong. Well, You may say, this is the final battle. It doesn't really matter what we say. Just defend us. But the power has already been given to the Finance Committee, so it's within our rights to propose that. And I find what Michael Looks said is funny. Well, funding approvals given to White Elephant projects, and there is a project cost overrun, then those who oppose to the project are to be responsible, not the ones who approve the White Elephant projects in the first place. Are they ill? The FTU? So for the White Elephant project, now there is a project overrun of $600 million. It's people who oppose to the project in the first place who are responsible. So in a ball game, so it's the person who has fouled that should be given the penalty kick. Should we at least? Do we require health check, mental check to see if we function normally? I find this logic really ludicrous. So those who oppose to White Elephant projects should be responsible for these project overrun. Mr. Edward Lau, Mr. Eddie Chu asked the FS to act to use the fund after the 1st of July 2018. Well, I think Mr. Chu's motion is not justified. It gives us the impression that he just wants to delay the project. Well, if the item is approved, the administration still has to deal with the tender exercise. And it says clearly in the paper that they would start in the year 2018-19 to use the loan. So the earliest date is the 1st of April. It's very close to the date proposed by Mr. Chu. So this is rather meaningless. This will only cause the Finance Committee to spend more time to deal with it. Just now, Mr. Eddie Chu, has actually revealed his true intentions by saying too much. He said he's not doing it to filibuster, but it is filibuster. He's doing it for the sake of doing it. And he has ignored the fact that this proposal is superfluous. He prolongs the time spent on this, on the discussion of this item, so it's obvious. We have proposed many different points of view, DBO, DBG, and other different proposals. We have already set our piece. And many of us have talked about operation, whether to set indicators, how to make sure that everything is done properly. The administration has done very well to explain. We have to try to get as much common ground as possible and then make a decision. We hope that the Kai Tak Sports Park project will start so that Hong Kong and also our sports sector will have a place to develop. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, first, a good word for the chairman for making the ruling. This is a very special ruling for members to propose conditions in approving a project under paragraph 21. of the Finance Committee procedure, members will try to set down some conditions to approve the project. It shows that we are willing to put down our differences to support the project so that it can start as planned. Members talked about whether Mr. Chu's proposal will have an impact on the project. As far as I know, when it comes to government projects, they would proceed with the project, submit the invoices and documentations, and then get money. So it's only a delay by only a few months when payments are made. Objectively speaking, it will not be like what the Principal Secretary has said, that there would be an impact on the progress of the project, nor will it tie down the administration. And the ruling of the chairman said that there is no evidence to show that Mr. Chu's proposal will have any impact on the commencement of the project. There is nothing abnormal. So approving the project with conditions will not affect the commencement and progress of the project. This gives us a chance to find consensus. Why not do it? Why do we have to throw our gauntlet down? And to distort our good intentions and make it out that we are trying to get in the way. If Mr. Chu's proposal or motion is endorsed, it means I will support the overall funding of the Kai Tak Sports Park. So why not do it? Mr. Ray Chan, 3 minutes. First, I thank Mr. Chu for persisting. Last time in the Disney project, Mrs. Regina Ip tried to use this paragraph to impose conditions. I agree with what Mr. Edward Lau said. Well, amongst the 7 proposals, this has the least impact. And I doubt, it's a huge doubt, whether it will achieve the goal Mr. Chu has in his head. The administration tried to get the $31.9 billion using DBO. Well, if they are willing to change the approach, that means they will have to start everything with scratch. It's not the case that it's only a delay of 3 months. However, on the other hand, I find it quite strange. If Mr. Chu said it's the 2nd of April 2018, do you think that he has gotten your way? I don't know what the timetable is. Well, it will take, say, 4 months to engage consultants and maybe longer. I don't know when you will invite tender, how long it will take to vet the tender proposals, and when you will decide. I think it's a consideration of whether to use the money and not change it to DBG. We have only just over a year till 1st of July next year. Does it mean that on the 1st of April you will make payment to the successful bidder? And if this motion is passed, do you think that the other party would refuse to accept payment on the 1st of July or start on the 1st of July?
How will it affect the costs and the works? Even the government cannot come up with a calculation. But I think Mr. Eddie Chu's attempt has identified a tool for the FC. Well, I hope it doesn't become a filibustering tool. Who else wishes to speak? Please press the button. I need to monitor our progress. Lo Gun-chong, Alvin Young, whoever wishes to speak, please press the button. Dr. Gokake. Chairman, you're very cooperative. Are you trying to filibuster as well? Dr. Gokake. Well, first of all, I support Eddie Chu's paragraph 21. I heard the Secretary say that basically paragraph 21, according to your definition, it cannot be applied because your description is very strange. Anything that restricts or affects in any way the funding, including the construction date, the completion date, and when they receive the funds, or even if it affects the completion date, that is not allowed. So I think that is not in accordance with the requirement that LegCo monitor the government's finances. So in this setting, our powers are very limited. Then after the block grant is completed, we have to rely on other conditions to ensure that any funding for the sports park, the completion, and the details are in the public interest. So one requirement is everything has to be approved by majority in LegCo, as members also mentioned. Mrs. Regina Yip, very seasoned civil servant, she would also include a condition that it has to be in public interest. So I don't see how this is against public interest. In fact, if we can have more ammunition for choosing tenders, or it would garner more support. So I am very disappointed with the government's arrangement. So no matter what, the composition of the LegCo does not allow for members under the rules of procedure to monitor the government's financial expenditure. And this is why Hong Kong needs to take one step further in our constitutional development. Otherwise, requirements in paragraph 21 and the LegCo's role as a monitor, all this is just empty talk. Mr. Abraham Sheck, I have listened to the Pan-Democrats. They have a right to propose Rule 21, but what is the impact? So Eddie Chu quoted Rule 21, but that is in breach of Article 73 of the Basic Law. We approve government projects under Article 73. It's not for legislators to decide how the money should be spent. We have the right to support or deny the funding. So this is ultra-virus, Chairman, so I do disagree with them. Mr. Zheng Chongtai. Thank you, Chairman. I didn't want to speak, but since you invited me, I'll put in a few words. I want to respond to the government officials' comments on Eddie Chu's suggestion. I think that there is some wording where there were allegations of not in compliance with the ROP. The government needs to retract that and apologize. If you ask me, how did they go beyond their ambit? It's like Holden Chow, where the documents were leaked. The public is fully aware, but everybody has mentioned ROP. That is not any. We're not going above your heads. And if you say we are in breach of the rules of procedure, so that goes back to the question just now. This is not members' responsibility. This should be chairman and the secretary's something that you should consider. Are there any breaches in the wording? So that should be the chairman's responsibility. It's got nothing to do with Mr. Eddie Chu. Also want to respond to Mr. Wu Jiwai's point that this motion is compromised. If you were to ask me, I wouldn't agree with the DBO to promote sports development. This is not an industry, it's sports development. So when I disagree, and if I have to support this motion, then that means I have to support your DBO. So I actually taken a step back, and I can summarize it. In the government's document, they are saying that using this arrangement, they can have mega events, they can have elite sports development, and they can have more public access to the facility. But how do we balance that with the public spending and our monitoring of public spending? So the outcome is it will be privatized, it would be for elite and commercialized. So it's very clear that when they have mega events, it's going to be commercialized, and when it's elite, it's not going to be. When you have elite events, it's not going to be for general public use. Mr. Alvin Young, I have to thank Eddie Chu's efforts, and I also want to respond to Mr. Abraham Sheck. Mr. Sheck said this motion is ultra-virus. It has gone beyond the powers bestowed by the basic law. Now, assuming Mr. Abraham Sheck is correct, then Eddie Chu, we are now, this comes from the Public Funds Ordinance, and that is where the motion is being derived. So if Mr. Abraham Sheck is correct, then we shouldn't have this power bestowed by the Public Finance Ordinance. But very obviously, there is this ordinance, and Mr. Eddie Chu's motion has been scrutinized by the legal advisor. That's why we have one motion remaining out of the 7. And of course, the legal advisor might not be correct, and Mr. Abraham Sheck might be correct, but if we look at the basic law, I don't see why we cannot, when we deploy public funds, we can add conditions to it. I don't see any limitations or constraints. So allow me to rebut Mr. Abraham Sheck's point. LegCo, in approving public funds, they should and can have the right to put conditions, but of course there are prerequisites, and it has to be approved by the FC. And ultimately, if the funding is still approved, we just add some conditions to it, and these additional conditions are part of the deal. And here is where I have a difference of opinion with Mr. Abraham Sheck, and that is, and I would like to conclude there. Mr. Hui Jifeng. Thank you, Chairman. Paragraph 21 of the FCROP, as we said, it was quoted for the first time, and Chairman, you have also ruled for the first time on Rule 21 motion, and Mr. Eddie Chu had proposed 7 motions, and you ruled 6 of them not being relevant. And if we look at your reasonings, the irrelevant conclusion is not as you don't have a strong reasoning for that. When LegCo approves funding, it can apply conditions, and the reasoning is that the LegCo gives FC powers of monitoring powers and controls on how the money should be spent. So if you can just say that the other 6 motions are irrelevant, that is you can say it's subjective. If we look at Mr. Eddie Chu, he says that when these funds are being spent, it can only be spent on DBO, DBG. So in our hours of meetings, this is what we've been discussing. If these are conditions and if it cannot be included based on Rule 21, then what's the point of having Rule 21? So I think your chairman's interpretation is very narrow. And Mr. Lok also said that this 7th motion, you're only delaying it for a few months. Why can't we commence the work? So why should we hold up workers from doing the jobs? And he has taken a very narrow view. He has ignored the part that has been vetoed. So if Motion 7 allows us for more time, it gives the government more time to consider DBG, or Motion 2, whether we should have priority use, or Motion 6, Motion 5, and so on. That is, it has to be reviewed at an appropriate time, and we need to consult the public and the industry. All this is good for the project. So if you just very narrowly look at item Motion 7 and you're just stalling for the sake of stalling, that is a very narrow viewpoint. We are giving the government time to fine-tune their proposal. So this is the point I wish to raise. I'd also like to say, Mr. Hui Jifeng, your comments are very superficial. We spent hours, the secretary and legal advisor spent hours on this, and the electrical secretariat and legal advisor, I had to take on board their views and make a decision. We did not make arbitrary decisions. We spent hours in deliberation. We still have Mr. Nathan Law and Kong Junyu who wish to speak. Anybody else? Now let me, after these 2 speakers, I'll have to hand the floor to the government, and then Mr. Eddie Chu will speak, and then we can vote. Mr. Nathan Law. First of all, Chairman, I have to thank Mr. Eddie Chu. He quoted Rule 21 and made many attempts. The government, regarding the use of Rule 21, they have not made a clear response. So Mr. Eddie Chu is groping around in the dark, and he now has a binding motion regarding the government's project. So I want to point out Mr. Eddie Chu's attempt at this motion. The content of the motion, of course, is important, but raising the motion is very meaningful. It signifies that the LegCo, after many attempts, they have found a meaningful tool. In the past, we saw that the rule of the SAR, they cannot delegate authority. They will not take on board different views and opinions. A lot of our policy decision makers are not transparent. They have not delegated the authority to meet public's needs, and that in the past that has led to a governance difficulty. So Mr. Eddie Chu's paragraph 21 motion, given our macro background, he has sought some space where the LegCo can create a condition with the government and support certain items, and that has given LegCo some power to represent the public and amend the government's proposals. So amending government proposals or giving an extra choice for the public, allowing us to have better use of public resources. This is not the first time for Hong Kong. It's a global trend. If every project proposed by the government, if they think it's perfect and there's no room for improvement, this stalemate will continue forever. So when the CE incumbent is saying that we shouldn't just object or approve, we shouldn't be hostile, we're trying to seek more space to support the government. We want to narrow the divide. So I would like everybody to take this issue very seriously, regardless of background. And next, Mr. Kong Zhen-Yu. Thank you, Chairman, for a lot of experienced legislators and for the new legislators, where we make different attempts. It should be commended because it stimulates the growth of the legislature. When there are more questions and when the government cannot respond appropriately, or if they cannot persuade us regarding the DBO, DBG arrangements, why the rent the government is charging, why do they organize less events than the private sector? Why do they have to lose money to the tune of 400 million? So the Kai Tak Sports Park, is it to make money or is it to help develop sports? So this is something we need to ask ourselves. So at this point, I have to thank Mr. Chu for activating Rule 21 and also quoting the Public Funds Ordinance, where we have now the chairman's ruling and allow us some debate. So we should not underestimate a postponement of 4 months. So last month we were still talking about the 180 million bid incentives, or where they can get up to, the contractors can get up to 60 million if they lose their bid. So we were asked to relax it a little bit and approve 120 million. So we need to tell the public that we are worried. It's not in the future, in the next decade, LegCo will have to continue to operate. We have a responsibility to safeguard our core values. So 4 months, holding you up by 4 months is giving you more time to reconsider where we can have more stakeholders, more operators. At least LegCo will have a stronger monitoring role rather than just not knowing the composition, not knowing who is bidding, and not having any membership list of the Kai Tak Sports Park Consultation Committee. Well, this is a very reasonable proposal. in compliance with the law. It's reasonable. So we should take this seriously. So this session will end, and we will convene again at 5:25. And after one or two more speakers, we'll have to put it to the vote. So let's convene punctually.